Chapter 1. The Inheritance Discussion. The October wind shook the old Victorian house in Salem, Massachusetts. Inside, the Whitmore family gathered for their grandfather Theodore's funeral, a reunion long overdue and filled with tension. It had been 3 years since they'd last shared a room, years marked by disputes and silence. Marcus Whitmore sat at one end of the mahogany dining table, his worn leather jacket a stark contrast to the expensive suits and dresses of his relatives. At 32, he looked older than his age, with rough hands and tired eyes. Life had been hard, and his family never seemed to understand. Uncle Richard adjusted his glasses and opened a folder. "We need to discuss the will and asset distribution," he said with authority. The room fell quiet, except for the rain tapping against the windows. Theodore's death had forced family members scattered across the country to return to this house filled with memories and unspoken resentments. "The house will be sold," Richard announced. "We expect about $800,000, split 6 ways. Jennifer, Marcus's cousin and a real estate lawyer, nodded. "I've contacted agents. We'll list it soon." Sarah, Marcus's sister, frowned. "But what about Marcus? Can he handle his share responsibly?" Marcus felt the familiar sting of judgment. "I'm right here," he said softly. Sarah's voice took on a patronizing tone. "We know, but you've struggled. Your handyman business barely covers rent. Maybe a trust fund would be better." Richard agreed. "Marcus, no offense, but your financial history isn't great. Remember the failed restaurant? The motorcycle accident? We should help you manage the money." Marcus clenched his jaw. The restaurant failed because his partner stole money. The accident happened while he was helping rebuild after Hurricane Sandy. But no one cared to hear his side. "I can manage my money," Marcus insisted. Jennifer laughed coldly. "You live above a laundromat, drive an old truck, and don't own property. We're just facing facts." Richard added bluntly, "Sudden wealth can be dangerous. We've all worked hard for stability. You made different choices." The room nodded in agreement, as if Marcus's struggles were his own fault. Sarah continued, "Maybe Marcus should get a smaller share at first, until he proves responsibility." Richard proposed, "We could give him 20% now, and hold the rest in trust until he shows financial stability." Outside, rain poured harder, matching the storm inside Marcus. For years, he'd been the family's disappointment. What they didn't know was that every bad choice was a sacrifice. The restaurant to help his ex-wife, the lost savings for his mother's cancer treatments. Margaret, their aunt, added with false sweetness, "We're doing this out of love." Grandpa Theodore would want that. Marcus almost laughed. Theodore was the only one who ever truly understood him. "So it's settled," Richard said, writing notes. 20% now. The rest in trust pending counseling and proof of stability." Voices blurred into background noise as Marcus looked out at the colonial house across the street. A childhood memory. If only they knew, he thought, fingers on the papers in his pocket. If only they knew what those failures had really meant. Tonight was for listening and gathering strength. Tomorrow, everything would change. Chapter 2. The Will Reading. The next morning, crisp autumn air filled the conference room of Whitmore and Associates, the law firm that had served the family for generations. The room smelled of leather and old wood, with stern portraits of judges watching over the gathering. Marcus arrived early, still wearing yesterday's clothes, clutching a cheap coffee, while his family trickled in, dressed in expensive funeral black. Attorney William Hutchins, a dignified man in his 60s, and Theodore Whitmore's longtime lawyer, greeted the room. "I appreciate you all being here for the formal reading of the will. Theodore's wishes are very specific. Some of you may find them surprising." Richard leaned forward, confident. "Surprising how? We agreed on the basic distribution yesterday." Hutchins adjusted his glasses. There were several significant changes made in the past year. Sarah glanced nervously at Marcus, who remained still and unreadable. "First, the family home," Hutchins announced. "It's left entirely to Marcus Whitmore." The room erupted in shock. "That's impossible," Jennifer said, legal instincts kicking in. "Marcus can't maintain or pay taxes on a nearly $1 million property." "There must be a mistake," Richard said, face reddening. "Dad wouldn't leave everything to someone like me?" Marcus interrupted quietly. Hutchins raised a hand. There's more. Marcus also inherits the stock portfolio, the antique collection, and the safe deposit box contents. The silence was overwhelming. Margaret looked pale. David stared, speechless. What about the rest of us? Sarah asked softly. The others received token inheritances of $5,000 each and a personal letter explaining Theodore's reasoning. Hutchins handed out sealed envelopes. Family members tore them open with trembling hands. Richard's face drained of color. This can't be legal. We'll contest it. That's your right, Hutchins said calmly. But Theodore anticipated this. The will is ironclad, backed by detailed documentation and a legal defense fund to protect Marcus's inheritance. Sarah's tears fell as she read her letter. Grandpa knew, she whispered. Knew what? Jennifer demanded. Sarah held her letter up. About Marcus's restaurant. How he paid employees from his own pocket when his partner stole everything. About Mom's medical bills. His hurricane relief work. Everything. Margaret's letter slipped to the floor. He says Marcus has been the only one putting others first, embodying the true Whitmore values. David's voice was barely audible. He calls the rest of us comfortable strangers who forgot their roots. The room was silent, filled only with rustling paper and soft sobs. Marcus remained calm, his coffee forgotten. One last thing, Hutchins said softly. Theodore left a separate letter for Marcus, to be read aloud. He handed Marcus a sealed envelope marked, "For my grandson's vindication." Marcus opened it slowly, voice steady. Dear Marcus, if you're reading this in front of the family, it means they've treated you as I feared, a failure needing their guidance and protection. But they don't know, as I do, that you've quietly built something meaningful while they built nothing but egos. Sarah looked up sharply. Built what? Marcus continued. They see your old truck and small apartment and think you have nothing. They don't see the properties you've purchased and renovated, the families you've housed affordably when no one else would. Jennifer's pen dropped. By now, you own 17 properties across 3 states, all thanks to your hard work and sacrifice. You've honored the Whitmore legacy more than any of them. Marcus spread the documents he'd brought. The deeds, receipts, rental agreements, bank statements. Every job I took, every bad choice, was a step in this plan. The handyman business taught me construction. The small apartment was a sacrifice while I invested elsewhere. He pointed to one deed. This duplex in Springfield, bought for $30,000, renovated for $20,000, now worth $120,000, housing families who couldn't get mortgages. Jennifer examined another. A commercial building in Hartford. When? 2 years ago. The previous owner planned to evict tenants and demolish the building. I bought it to save those businesses and keep rents affordable. David stared at rental income statements surpassing his own salary. You're not poor. You're truly wealthy. I was never poor, Marcus said quietly. I invested in what mattered while you all chased appearances. He stood, gathering his papers. Grandpa helped me buy my first property. He co-signed my loan when no bank would touch me at 22. Sarah's tears fell again. Why didn't you tell us? To see who you really were, Marcus replied. To know if you'd support me when I had nothing, or only respect me when I had something. Silence fell. Richard spoke, his voice stripped of certainty. Well, now we know. Chapter 3. The Revelation. 3 hours later, the Whitmore family sat in stunned silence in the Marriott Hotel lobby. The shock from the will reading had shifted to a complex mix of guilt, embarrassment, and reluctant respect for Marcus, the man they had underestimated for years. Marcus had agreed to join them for coffee, partly curious about their reactions, partly because 15 years of resentment couldn't be settled in one morning. I need to understand. Jennifer finally broke the silence. This portfolio, it's worth over $3 million. How is that possible on a handyman's income? Marcus stirred his coffee slowly. It started with Grandpa Theodore. When I was 22, I told him I wanted to help people who couldn't get traditional loans. He thought I was naive, but supported me. He showed them a photo of a rundown duplex. This was the first property. Grandpa co-signed a $25,000 loan. The place was condemned. I lived in one half while fixing the other. Where did you learn construction? David asked, no longer condescending. YouTube, library books, trial and error. I also worked for contractors, 18-hour days, 7 days a week. Sarah shook her head. We all thought you were lost after college. Mom worried. Oh, Mom knew, Marcus said softly. She helped research properties and drove me to look at them. She never told you because she knew you'd discourage me. Their mother had died 5 years ago, taking this secret with her. After the duplex, I built a system, Marcus continued. Buy distressed properties, renovate, rent to families needing affordable housing, then use income and appreciation to buy more. Margaret leaned forward. But some properties are in good neighborhoods. That's the plan, Marcus smiled. As I improved, I bought fixer-uppers in better areas, renting to middle-class families or selling to fund affordable housing. He showed before and after photos. A Victorian house restored to grandeur, a Boston apartment converted from a crack house, and a brownstone in Hartford turned into 4 apartments for single mothers. The city gave him a community award for it. Richard looked stunned. You've been doing this for 10 years, and we had no idea. You didn't want to know, Marcus said matter-of-factly. Whenever I tried to talk, you changed the subject or told me to get a real job. So I stopped. The silence was heavy with years of misunderstanding. Marcus, Sarah said, we're sorry. We should have listened. Sorry doesn't erase 15 years of being the family cautionary tale, Marcus replied. Or yesterday's talk about trusts because I'm irresponsible. Jennifer winced. We were wrong. But look at you. You live in a tiny apartment, drive an old truck. Yeah, Marcus said. This truck hauled materials for 60 projects. The apartment costs $600 a month, so I can invest $2,000 more each month. He looked around. You want to know the difference? You built lifestyles. I built a legacy. David cleared his throat. What now? You could sell everything and retire. Marcus laughed without humor. Retire? I'm 32. This is just the start. Grandpa's inheritance is expansion capital. He pulled out a purchase agreement for a 12-unit apartment building needing $200,000 in renovations. This will house 12 families and fund 3 more projects. Margaret stared. You're buying this with Grandpa's money. I'm buying it because Grandpa trusted I'd help people, not buy toys. Then Marcus revealed a letter from Grandpa Theodore. It stated that Marcus had been the sole beneficiary of the will for 3 years, chosen because he understood that wealth is a tool to help others. 3 years? Richard whispered. Yes. After I showed him my portfolio, he changed the will. He waited his whole life for a Whitmore who shared his values. Standing, Marcus gathered his papers. Yesterday, you called me poor and irresponsible. Today, you know the truth. Tomorrow, you decide who you want to be. As he left, Sarah called out, What about us, the family? He turned, softer now. That depends if you want to be part of what I'm building, or just part of my life, because I'm successful. The question hung as Marcus walked into the afternoon sun, leaving his family to face the truth about themselves and the man they'd underestimated for so long. Chapter 4. The New Foundation. 1 week later, Marcus stood in the living room of his grandfather's Victorian house, sunlight streaming through tall windows and dust dancing in the air like possibilities. The house held decades of family memories, and now the weight of new decisions. He had spent the past days fielding calls from family members, struggling to reconcile their image of poor Marcus with the reality of the real estate mogul he'd become. Some calls sought reconciliation. Others were veiled requests for loans or favors. A knock at the door broke his thoughts. Through the glass, Marcus saw Sarah standing nervously on the porch, smaller than he remembered. Come in, he said, opening the door. I wondered when you'd show up. Sarah stepped inside, eyes taking in the familiar room with new perspective. It's strange here without Grandpa. Everything's the same, but feels different. That's because you're seeing it with different eyes, Marcus replied, settling into Theodore's old leather chair. A week ago, this house was a consolation prize. Now, it's my headquarters. She sat on the couch where they had played as kids. Marcus, I need to say something. Please hear me. He nodded. I've replayed every family dinner, every joke about your lifestyle choices, every time I bought you clothes because I thought you couldn't afford nice things. I treated you like charity." Her voice cracked. "I was wrong, and I think I was wrong on purpose." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "It was easier to see you as a failure than admit you were braver than the rest of us. You took risks, helped people, built something meaningful. I married a dentist, bought a house, and called it success." She pulled out a folded check. "This is the $5,000 inheritance Grandpa left me. I want you to have it." Marcus didn't reach for it. "Why?" "Because I don't deserve it." "You've lived Grandpa's values while I ignored them. Maybe if I give this up, I'll remember sacrifice." "Keep your money," Marcus said gently. "This isn't about that." "Then what is it?" Marcus stood, looking out the window at the neighborhood where he learned to dream. "It's about whether we build something new together, or keep repeating old patterns." He turned, spreading blueprints on the table. "Remember the Springfield apartment? I'm turning it into transitional housing for single mothers, a place with 6 months affordable rent, job help, childcare, counseling." Sarah's eyes widened. "You want me to run it. I want you to help build something Grandpa would be proud of. Use your skills to help people, not just protect your comfort." For the first time in years, Sarah felt excitement beyond her own security. What about the family? Jennifer wants to provide free legal services. David's researching financing options. Margaret's lining up corporate sponsors. And Uncle Richard. Marcus's face hardened. "He's struggling to relate to me as an equal. He'll come around, or not. That's his choice." Sarah nodded. "And if he doesn't? We'll miss him, but we won't let pride stop us." Another knock. A young woman with 2 children stood on the porch. "Mr. Whitmore," she said nervously. "I'm Carmen Rodriguez. Mr. Patterson said I should talk to you about the housing program." Marcus smiled. A real one. "Come in, Carmen." As Carmen and her children entered, Sarah saw Marcus transform. Anger replaced by patience and care. "These are my kids, Miguel and Sophia," Carmen said softly. "We've been staying with my sister, but it's crowded. They need space." "How old?" Marcus crouched to their level. 7 and 5. Good kids. "Have you seen the building?" "Only pictures." "What's the catch?" "Cheap housing usually has strings." Marcus's expression grew serious. "The catch is you have to succeed. 6 months to save money, find work, settle the kids. Then move on for the next family." He handed Carmen a folder. "We provide job placement, childcare, counseling, tools for long-term success, not just shelter." Tears filled Carmen's eyes. "Why do this for strangers?" "Because everyone deserves a chance. And I had people who believed in me when I needed it most." After they left, Sarah and Marcus sat in silence. "I want to help," she said. "Not just with housing, but everything. I want in." Marcus studied her. "It won't be easy. This isn't a side project. These families need commitment." "I'm ready. It means changing priorities. Maybe a lower salary job that means more." "I understand. And accepting I'm not the little brother you protected. I'm the one with vision. You're the one who needs to learn." Sarah smiled through the sting. "I can live with that." Marcus smiled back. "Welcome to the family business. The real family business." As the October wind rattled the windows, inside the house the sound felt less like a warning and more like a call to begin again.